Hi, a very good evening to all of you here, and welcome to another session of Ask Me Anything with the Institute for Financial Literacy. I am Jolene here, and on behalf of the Institute for Financial Literacy, I will be facilitating tonight's topic, MoneySense for your child. I myself am a mother of two young girls, aged 6 and 9. So this is also a topic that's very close to my heart, and I really look forward to sharing with you this evening and to hear questions from you as well. But before that, allow me to also share with you a little about the organization whom I'm representing today. So as mentioned, I'm representing the Institute for Financial Literacy. We are a collaboration between MoneySense and Singapore Polytechnic Enterprise. So IFL, we are the outreach arm aimed to bring financial education to the public. Now, we pride ourselves as being objective, so our sessions do not involve any advice in product selection. It will be purely for the purpose of evaluating information. And having said that, in the course of our sharing, we may make mention of certain industries, companies, or even products, but that will be solely for the purpose of explaining and illustrating concepts. Should you wish to make a decision to invest in any product, we advise you to consult a licensed financial advisor. So this evening, right, I'm sure among us here today, we are all parents. The topic, MoneySense for your child, may have piqued your interest for a few reasons. Maybe you are here because you are thinking, financial literacy, okay, I think it's fairly important, but how important should it be featured in my child? And if I were to make a place for it to start teaching them on financial education, establishing good financial habits, how should I go about doing it? Should I be the one as a parent to be the role model? Or can I, engage an external teacher, consider sending them for workshops, etc.? Or more importantly, because if you are a parent like me, of more than one child, chances are your children are in different age groups, right? So you're thinking, it can't be a one-size-fits-all approach, isn't it? I should be adopting different methods, right? I should be teaching different theories, different concepts to children of different age. So that brings us here today, this evening, isn't it? Now, before we go into the AMA segment, I would like to have a poll just to warm everybody up. So in my poll, a very simple question, which I would like to invite parents here today to participate. Now, the question here is, why do you think it is important to teach financial education for your children? So as mentioned, we are here today because we are curious. We think that it is important to a certain extent. And can I invite all of you to indicate in the poll, right, which option A, B, C best resonates with you? There is no right or wrong answer. And as with all voting, your votes are confidential. I do not get to see who votes for which option, but we'd just like to have a few on the ground. And what is your motivation, right, for teaching financial education to your children? So take some time to input the answer. You may want to put some thought. As mentioned, there is no right or wrong. Maybe you are thinking financial education, right? It seems like an important life skill. I think it's important my child pick it up. So as they go along in life, they can apply it. Or maybe you're hoping with grounded financial education, your child can more than survive, can thrive in every environment. Or last but not least, it can enable them to even meet their financial goal. Okay, I think the voting is almost coming to a close. Wow, guess what, everybody? The consensus is split among all three options. Now we'll take it as a sign that all three options are important to all parents here, and I have to agree, right? These three should collectively form the basis of why we deem financial education to be important for our children. Allow me to take just a couple of minutes to share with you what some studies have been commissioned on this topic. So this study that I'm showing here is actually commissioned and conducted by the National Financial Educators Council in the United States. So traditionally, right, the thought on the street is that children, they do not need to know about money, but that's traditionally. Increasingly, financial literacy for children is coming into the spotlight. Reason being, we are coming to the awareness that if children, they are not taught good money habits and the reasoning, the basis behind them, what will likely happen is that they will pick up and emulate relationships with money based on the adults in their lives. So you probably get the drift. If they are surrounded by adults with less than ideal financial habit, it means they will follow suit. But on the other hand, if they are surrounded by adults with grounded and ideal financial habits, then they will likely pick up those habits, which will form an anchor. Now, I like to use the analogy, an anchor to keep them rooted, to keep them grounded as they journey across life. So today, that is what we want to achieve for our children. We want to start early, right? And hope that good financial habits will be their anchor as they navigate this journey called life. Just one more study. This one is commissioned by the Brown University, an Ivy League university in the United States. So the anchor that this study was conducted is based on the power of habits, right? And the findings is that habits take root by the age of 9. Interestingly, they did not observe a financial related trait. The trait that they observe here is on a very fundamental act of putting away his or her own toys or his or her own things after play, after use. I think parents here, we can all see where this is coming from. We can all agree with that, right? We are always encouraging our children to pack. And what the study shows is habits really form at the age of 9. At one quick glance, if you see the graph, it plateaus. It plateaus after the age of 9 all the way until 18. Logically, would an 18-year-old not know that it is important, it's a virtue to put away his or her own things? He does, right? But why do we not see an 80% statistic here? It is because habits, be it good or bad, once they take root, it is very difficult to undo. So here today, may I inspire you to move forward and inculcate good financial habits in your child. Now, the third item that I want to propose, it's not a study by any university, but we want to be very mindful of the influence of advertising faced by not just our children, I would say everyone today. So even if we look at our children, they are subject to hundreds of spending messengers. I'll give you some examples. YouTube advertisements. If you do observe, when your child watches a YouTube video, at the beginning, there may be an advertisement being played. And there may be times these advertisements are actually geared at toys, unboxing toys, as if the toys are free. So it's a temptation, isn't it, for them to want to purchase, to own it. Or e-commerce sales. These days, we do not need to go to the shops to buy things. The shops are literally in our phones through the various e-commerce platforms. And with all the sales going on every month, there is no lack of opportunity to remind us to spend money. Right? Social media advertisements, my colleagues and I were just discussing social media advertisements. They are even based on a profiling algorithm. So that can be very powerful, very targeted. The last example I would like to say is also very powerful. I coined this term peer-to-peer advertisement. Now, when they go to school, they see what their friends have. And that can be a peer pressure as well. So if we do not keep our child grounded, right, they can get swayed with all these spending messages. And in other words, they may not be able to be on top of their finances. So remember, habits, we start it young, right, and we keep them anchored. So today, for our AMA session, I'm sure you may have some questions. In fact, prior to this evening, we already have some questions from the public. We would like to encourage the public to actually channel more questions. And you can do so by actually scanning the QR code, input your questions into Slido, and we will answer them as we go along. So using your mobile phones, feel free to scan the QR code and input the burning question you may have for myself. And at this point, I would like to bring on my two guest panelists who will be with me to answer the questions from parents. Right, I will be bringing on my two guest panelists. Welcome, Faris. Welcome, Bobby. Thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you. Now, before we begin, perhaps Faris and Bobby, you would like to give a brief introduction of yourself. We'll start with Faris.
Hey, hi. Hey, thanks, Jolene. I'm very happy to be on the panel. My name is Faris Wee. I'm one of the master trainer from Institute for Financial Literacy. So my wife and I, we have one son, but we aspire to have more.
Good. The nation will be very proud of you. Okay, thank you, Faris. Bobby, how about you?
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Jolene and IFL for inviting me here to share my experiences of parenting and in regards to financial planning. My name is Bobby. I'm a business owner, 55 years old, and a father of three kids, two of which are in the 20s, and my youngest is 15 years old. So hopefully I
Wow,
can share some of my experiences, and at the same time, I also want to learn from this session. Yeah.
I'm sure you can,
Mm.
because your children, the age groups are quite wide. So
Yes.
in other words, you are really connected to the realities through generation. You'll be able to
Correct.
share test
Yes.
and tried methods that you have employed. Yeah,
I
indeed,
hope
we
so.
three of us, we sit before the audience here today as parents. We want to share our experience. It's a
Yeah,
learning. I think as parents, we will all agree, right? We different folks, different strokes, but we are here to share and learn from one another.
correct.
Now, as the audience are probably keying in the questions, Bobby Paris, maybe we can have a bit of a discussion here. So earlier on, I actually ran a poll on the importance of financial education, and all parents agree it's important, right? They agree with the various reasons. So I'd just like to hear from both of you, from your viewpoints as parents. Do you think that if financial education is important, should we actually play a very active role, or should we let them grow up and pick it up themselves as they journey through life? What do you all think?
Maybe I can start first.
Sure.
Well, I personally feel that we need to be intentional about it, because if we just let them learn on their own, right, without guided instruction, without guided education, I think they may go everywhere. So modeling is extremely important. So I believe in intentionality. Yeah. So I agree with the that financial education we should start young, as long as they can connect the dots, as long as they can understand.
Thank you, Paris. Right. Bobby, how about you? Any
Yeah,
words to add on?
yeah. Likewise, I echo what Ferris has said. It has to be intentional, and you do not want to leave it to chance. And to me, financial planning it is a very critical life skill, whether at work or your own personal life is a critical life skill. And at the same time, it also promotes or your responsible living going forward for in your lifetime. Yeah. So I think it has to be intentional.
Thank you, gentlemen. Indeed, Paris, just now you mentioned the word modeling, right? In other words,
Mm,
setting the example, being the role model. And I think that really speaks of the spirit of how we teach financial education, because attitudes, they are caught, not taught, just
yeah.
verbally, right? So I have also mentioned that children would actually observe the financial habits of adults around them. And chances are the adults around them could be us as parents, because we spend so much time with our children. Are we guilty of sometimes exhibiting poor habits that our children see and emulate? Or maybe we can also take credit for the good habits that we have instilled, right?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I mean, this reminds me of, I'm not sure about others among the panel, about myself. I noticed that my son will take on the colorful language and the posture and the tone that I have, as well as we are also encouraged that he has also taken on some good habits. So you are right to say that attitudes are caught, and skills are taught. So modeling is extremely, extremely important. Yeah.
Indeed, indeed. I myself too, right? I have friends coming to me to say that your child really takes after you. And I thought they meant in resemblance, but they say no, it's the mannerism, right? So us as parents, I think we really need to uphold our role as a role model. Do not belittle it. I think we can, be very happy that we can actually be in a position to influence them, right? And that will also make us more mindful of the values that we display through our words, through our actions, through our behavior as well, right? Okay, so now since we want to guide our children on financial literacy, financial education, do you think is there a minimum age? Or how about you, Bobby? Since you had three children, you may have trial and error. And is there so-called an ideal age to start teaching?
There's no ideal age, but you should start talking to them about the concept of money as soon as early as they started to have possession, asking for possession. And as you know, when they want to have possession, something must in exchange, right? You want something, you have to give something, right? So typically, money, currency is an exchange for possession. So at that point in time, I think it's the right time to talk to them about the value of money.
I
As soon as
see.
they have that desire to have possession.
I see. So I gather for your children, the issue came into play when they entered primary school, I suppose,
I
because
think
that's
before
when,
that.
or even before that,
Before
right,
that.
right. Because yes, actually the moment they go out shopping, they see certain stores, they start making their
Yeah,
requests.
as soon as they have the desire for possession.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think every
Well,
parent, we can echo that. Yes,
yeah.
indeed.
So while we wait for the questions, right, it reminded me when Bobby is sharing, it reminded me of my first experience of teaching my son about savings when he's about 3 years old. So what happens is just now, Bobby was saying that as long as they have a sense of possession, right? So for my son, he has a habit of eating snacks on the way to his school. So then one day, my wife and I, we were discussing, hey, why don't we teach him savings by using snacks, since he loves it so much. So what we did is if he save more, then he will have, if he managed to save the snacks, he will have his favorite nuts later. So initially he munch up all, but over time, we noticed that he actually learned to tell us that he would like to save. So I totally agree with what Bobby was saying. Yeah.
Indeed. Thank you, gentlemen, for the very engaging discussion. Okay, I propose we move to the questions because they are really coming in like a flood, right? Audience have so many questions. Okay, so without further ado, let's look at the first question. How do you teach money sense to young children? We assume they're preschoolers. Can you share your personal experience? Now, the example Ferry shared is excellent, right? In viewing the example of using the snack, well, Faris, I think you have effectively tried to teach your child delayed gratification, right? And like you mentioned, maybe the first time it didn't work, but I guess you all were very encouraging. And that's a journey. I think we want to bring across when we teach money sense, when we teach financial habit, it can be unlike academic that you teach them a mathematical concept and they pick it up. It is a journey. So sometimes they may falter, but when they falter, us as parents, we are there to support and really push them forward, encourage them forward so that over time, they will be able to master the habit. Right? It takes time. So I would like to also encourage parents when we teach money sense, even to young children, patience is paramount. Patience is important. Okay. Or maybe Bobby will say, actually, when you teach older children, also need a lot of patience because they may actually disagree. They may assert their own viewpoints, right? Yeah. Okay. So I myself, I also have a personal experience. My children are young. I actually think the supermarket is an excellent classroom for teaching financial habits, such as differentiating between needs and wants. For example, there was once my younger daughter actually wanted to try a brand of ice cream during our weekly grocery run. So we told her, okay, we can see if it is on sale. If it's on sale, the price is all right, we can consider. So it wasn't on sale. So I told her, let's wait for it to go on sale and you can see how. So the next week, right, when she came back, she remembers, children remembers, but her question was posed differently. This time she asked, can we check if that ice cream is on sale? And guess what? It wasn't. So she accepted it. And eventually it went on sale like maybe 2 weeks later. My husband and I, we made good on our word and we purchased it. So like I say, when we teach children, especially younger children, we can use examples or like Paris uses a game. I think that's excellent because young learners, they are very visual, they learn through experience, and that's how we bring to them the values. Right, moving along, second question. COVID had a significant impact on all our lives, indeed, and we have been known to overspend during this period. How do you think our children will be affected? The impact on children, on families will probably vary during this period. It is a difficult period for the nation, for everybody granted. But I think we do see general themes. During the COVID, there was a lot of adjustment being made. parents had to work from home, children had to go through home-based learning. And on the economy, there may be parents who may have had some impacts to their job, either a loss of job or some form of a restructuring. My personal take on this is we need to use this chance. It is also a learning opportunity. It can be a difficult lesson to learn, but we can teach them resilience. This situation, it is undesired, it is not ideal, but life is really not a bed of roses. So we can be thankful that we are here right now with them to be able to walk through with them. And if certain families need to make adjustments, such as maybe reducing expenses, we have to tell our children very frankly, this is a situation that is happening. Let's weather through it as a family. I always tell my children, you are also part of the family. You contribute in areas that are suitable, right? We contribute in areas that are suitable. And that brings about another advantage because we then help our children to have a sense of ownership. Hopefully we get to stamp out the sense of entitlement as well. It's really not an easy time, I agree. So the best that we can make of it is really to use this as a platform to educate our children. Okay. Third question, my child is going to primary school next year. How much allowance should I give? And should it be on a weekly or daily basis? The golden question. Going to primary school, now that you have secured a place in the primary school of your choice, the next question will be, how much allowance should I give? Personally, for me, when my daughter went to primary school, I actually surveyed the canteen just to see how much food is being priced. And I do my benchmarking from there. I actually benchmark a little to her so that she will learn to save as well. Bobby, can I hear from Bobby? Because see, children are various age group. When they go to primary, when they go to secondary, how do you actually calibrate the allowance per se?
Okay, it's quite difficult for me to say because like I said, two of my kids are in the 20s. So the last time that they were in primary school is like 15 years ago. so the cost of living at that point in time is kind of very different from now. So, but the basic principle is still the same in the sense that you talk to your friends and how much they give the kids, and you also get a sense of how much the food at the canteen. So from there, you make your judgment call and give them on a daily basis. So it's fairly similar in the way that you deal with your estimation. So you get reference point from peers and at the same time do a survey. Just one thing to add on is like so between primary school and secondary school is kind of different. In primary school, you get them on a daily basis. So and you want to teach them about savings and stuff like that. And in secondary school, you may want to give them on a weekly basis, and that's where they learn about budgeting, cash flow, and stuff like that. So that's kind of a different phases of their life or phases of their school that you treat them differently. So between daily and weekly, and in both phases, you teach them different concepts. Yeah.
Was the transition from daily to weekly very seamless or?
No. So my eldest boy, so when he went to secondary school, he asked for a weekly kind of allowance. And so I said, okay, that's good. I started to give him weekly. I think after a few weeks, he came back to me and said, no, Papa, I said, let's go back to daily because he could not manage. He spent all this money in the first few days of the week. So he came back and said, let's go back to weekly basis. So he kind of understand about the budgeting, cash flow, can it last till the end of the week? So it was a good lesson for him. So then we went back to daily. Then when he was in upper secondary, then we start to give on a weekly basis. So it really depends on your kids' maturity. So different kids, different, they mature at different time. So you have to see the situation and apply the concepts and let them try, let them fail, let them come back to you and tell them that this doesn't work out for them. Yeah.
Thank you, Bobby. I like what you said. Sometimes we have to let them fail because that's where the learning comes in.
Correct.
Right. And because it's a journey, the failure is not the end. It's just a point in time that they can progress and move on from there.
Yep.
Okay. Now, next question. Oh, this is very relevant in today's context. Some schools are using stored digital money to pay for their food in canteen. Do you think that will hinder the learning of financial literacy? So Faris and myself, we are also trainers for IFL. When we conduct workshops or talks, this is also a question that's often posed to us, right, Faris?
Yeah.
Yes, and it's not something that we say that, okay, don't use stock money, because we recognize with digitalization, it will become more prevalent. So we actually encourage teaching our children budgeting, right? We actually, part of our activity kit in the MoneySense for Your Child talk, and we actually teach them to use playtime tokens. So with the playtime tokens, they learn how to actually budget and ration their playtime based on the amount of time they have. So the principle is something that we want to bring across, whether we are using hard cash or even digital money. We can get the children to learn to budget. It may involve them, for a start, really writing down what they spend their money on, because if it's digital in a card, they don't see the cash that is being flowed out of their account, out of their card. So one way is to get them to write down, to take note. Like I mentioned, with digitalization, we can't totally deny that from happening. But what we can do is to tweak the methods. And we move along, we change the methods and we move along the time. Because we have to, if digitalization were to go full steam, we will then have to tweak the way that we teach financial literacy. But for a start, at the beginning, P1, myself personally, I still use cash, coins, and dollar notes to teach my children, because there's also another angle that I want them to learn how to calculate, to be able to calculate the change that they receive, right? So that's how we are going to promote, teaching them using budgeting tools. It may be manually recording their expenditure to track their expenditure. Just a different modes to that. Okay, but increasingly we do hear this issue, this challenge parents come to us. We want to move forward with times, but at the same time, my child doesn't see the money because it's just taps away, right? They don't get to see it, right? So this is some of the techniques parents you may want to try, get them to actually take note and track their expenses so that they become very mindful. Right? It's not just tapping and it's a cup that fills up immediately every day, and an unlimited cup for that matter. Okay. The next question is pretty similar. How do I teach my child to budget when he does not use cash? Because
Maybe
he
I can
uses a
take this.
smartwatch. Yeah,
Maybe
sure,
I can take
Faris.
this question.
Mm.
The earlier question by the viewer, I mean that in today's society, it's very hard for us not to dichotomize cash and digital currency, right? And then there's so much digital platforms. So I think this viewer who posed this question, like, how do I teach my child to budget when he doesn't use cash in school? This is a relevant question, and a question that I believe many people are concerned about. And some of schools, they are start using smartwatch, right? And just to be very honest, I think this is a tough one, as my son is currently 4 years plus old. He's going to turn 5 in October. So what he has not kind of reached this stage yet, but what we have been trying to do is to use everyday teachable moments, such as letting him know that there's money in the little card, like the EasyLink card, or the card that we use to pay for our groceries. In fact, I have also deliberately asked him to use his EasyLink card when we take bus together. Just recently, in fact, I have also thinking currently, because he's only 4, right, going to be 5. I'm thinking of experimenting, asking him to buy some stuff using my card as well. So maybe I share just something that I find it very interesting, that I was having a conversation with my nephew, I think a few months ago. He turned 7 this year, so it's my sister's son. My sister has three children. So I was just asking him, right? Hey, how did my sis and my brother-in-law, teach him how to use the money? Then he mentioned that what they did is they created a canteen and a restaurant scenario, and I was like, wow, that's quite innovative. And getting him to pay for the food, and I was scratching my head and asking him, hey, do you understand? They say yes, he did. He said, yeah. But but the thing is, what they did with him, to be honest, is they use cash. So I was just thinking of answering to this viewer's question, right? Would be perhaps it can also be converted by using a simulated scenario such that they can use a smartwatch, use a card to pay for food as a practice. These are some thoughts I thought I want to share. Yeah.
Thank you, Faris. I think you have brought about a very good point because you taught your son who is a preschooler. So you are already trying to get him used to the way of digital payments, such that when he goes to primary school and be put to the test, because at primary school they have a little bit of income, so-called their allowance, and they get to exercise spending power. So when they're eventually put to the test, they will be able to recall and utilize what they have been rehearsing during the preschool age as well. I think parents will find that very, very useful. Right? So as preschoolers, we can actually start inculcating and using the methods and suggestions offered by Faris. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, another question. Children will always compare, indeed, what their friends have and their lifestyle. How should we teach our children to be contented and we are not as well off? Perhaps I will calibrate this question a little. Regardless of circumstances, we are all of different background levels. So even if you may be from the middle income, the point that we want to bring across to our children is we need to be contented and not to compare. Right? And this is also a tough one because children being children, they can't help seeing and observing their surroundings, what their friends may have. And does this problem get aggravated as they grow older, Bobby? Just to hear from you. Because when they grow older, they get more exposure to many more things. Is it more challenging?
Of course, Jolene. Even at my age.
We have different toys as adults.
Even at my age, right?
Yes, I hear you.
Contentment is a virtue or a wisdom, right? So it transcends all ages, right? So as soon as any one of us able to comprehend contentment, I think they are very wise. So it's not just limited to kids, right? Even for adults, right? So
definitely.
So contentment is something that is hard to achieve, but it's certainly a virtue to pursue, right? And like I said, back to your question about kids in their surrounding when they start to compare. So that's where I think as a parents, you have to inculcate the concept of needs and wants, right? So yeah, so as long as they understood what are needs and what are wants, and also understand the implication on instant gratification, I think you should be on the right path.
Right. Now, on instant gratification, it links to one of the questions we have later. Buy now, pay later is quite popular with the YOLO. Can I confess that I only found out what YOLO was like a few months ago? Shows my age, betrays my age. You only live once mentality. So because you only live once, you must live in the moment. If you like it, why wait? Right. So this is a challenge. I think it's a challenge when we teach financial literacy on savings because it really runs counter of YOLO. It runs counter of instant gratification. So buy now, pay later. How do we teach our children that this can be a debt trap? Now, I would like to probably detach two questions. The first part is on instant gratification. So how can we actually deter instant gratification from our children? Actually, what Faris did at the preschool age was very innovative, right? With what you did with your son. It was not money related, but you actually used the snack method. You told your son that, okay, if you don't finish this snack, I will reward you later. So that actually works at the preschool age. At the primary school age, if I may share, how I actually teach my child is, okay, when she goes to the bookstore, she loves books. And she says she would like to buy it. Honestly, we are in a position to be able to purchase, but at the same time, we want to inculcate to her that you cannot see something, you like it, you must have it now, because we are also worried. Item is not a bad thing, but the habit that may form thereafter. So I actually told her, why don't you save up? Right? You save up to this amount. right? And once you hit certain amount, I will give you a reward. So in other words, put them through the waiting process, put them through the patience game. Because if we don't start teaching delayed gratification, or if our children fall prey to instant gratification, I have a joke. Instant gratification has a partner in crime. When these two friends meet up, join forces, devastation. That friend is actually credit card, which is why we probably read in the news. There's a lot of credit card debt, and they are adults, right? Because if we do not manage instant gratification, down the road, our children, when they go out to work, they are able to actually have access to their own credit card. That may bring about another host of problems as well, right? How about for the older children, Bobby? Do you really go down to teach them? These are cases that you see of debt traps. These are what happened to people, because we have ample sources on the news to show cases.
For my kids, the two kids are in the 20s. They pretty much aware of that, and yeah, they're pretty much aware of all these credit cards. And so like I said, for my family, we have a credit cards that are typically used for online purchase. So from that so-called that credit card, I'm able to look at all my three kids, what they buy, how often they buy, what they buy. So I think those are the instances whereby you can, you go back to that and say, why are you buying this? So like I said, you cannot stop the trend. You cannot stop. You just got to adapt and find a way that you can keep track and monitor. And yeah. So for my family, we have one credit card that everybody uses, typically for online purchase. So from there you can tell, right?
I see. Jolene, this YOLO thing hit me quite hard, so I thought I want to contribute some perspective if it's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So with all honesty, right? My son is very young. I'm not sure how much he will be influenced by YOLO, which you have just defined, right? You only live once. You got to know a few months ago. Then there's also FOMO. I'm not sure how many of us is familiar, which I often hear young people talk about it, the fear of missing out.
Yeah.
Right, the fear of missing out. So to be honest, we have been thinking, and recently I had a chat with my wife, right? We were saying that we hope that he can adopt a JOMO mentality. So have you heard of JOMO?
I must admit I haven't.
It's the joy of missing out.
The opposite.
Yeah, the opposite. So just want to add some practical suggestion, because we did talk about it. But we want to let the viewers know, all of us here, we are not perfect parents, right? So we try and error, like what Bobby was sharing earlier. So just two suggestions comes to my mind. One is practice waiting, like what you have mentioned about delayed gratification. But how practically, how do we practice waiting? So it's not to say yes too soon and too quick, and also not to always say no. Change to not yet or wait. So for example, usually kid being kid, right? He wants to buy this and that now, snacks, whatever. So we usually, let's wait until dinner, let's wait until the weekend, let's wait until you finish your work, practice. So and just one more practical thing. The other thing would be a colleague of ours was sharing a CPF podcast of how this dad, right, asked the children to save up in their piggy bank for an upcoming Europe trip. So in the end, what they do is they broke the bank and they collected $1,000. So it's not quite enough to buy an air ticket. This is during the pre-COVID days, but then they still save up about $1,000 and they spend it on entertainment, theme parks. So I think it's about practicing modeling and waiting, and also not being afraid to allow them to fail, but I think the intentionality of modeling, practicing the joy of missing out, I think they will catch on that. Yeah, just to add.
Thank you. I think we all really learned something new today. All right, can I have your permission to use JOMO on some of my hashtag?
Of course.
Need to borrow some of your copyrights, Paris.
No, it's openly available. It's just come to think of it, I thought, I just want to share my perspective. Thanks.
I'm sure our listeners have also benefited a lot from that perspective indeed. All right, especially what you said. Don't just always say no, right? Because sometimes we're very quick to say no. But maybe sometimes we say not yet, and what are some of the circumstances? So we use the reasoning, and children, yeah, they are reasonable. If we show a consistent fair framework and we model it, then that will yield results in time to time. Okay, thank you, Paris. Okay,
No worries.
moving along. Next question. Should we keep our children's angbao money for them? I would like them to be in charge, but I'm afraid they would overspend. I guess at the preschool age, I'm not sure about yourself, Paris, but it's simpler, isn't it? Because angbao money, we keep, it goes into their bank.
Yeah, and in fact, okay, for him, because he's still young, we created a concept called a treasure box and a treasure house concept. So we get him to save in the treasure box, and after that, I bring him to the safe house. That is the bank, to ask him to save money. So that's for him. But this question, I'm very curious to know Bobby's perspective, because he has 3 kids, right? What I do know is during my time when I was in primary school or even secondary school, my mom let me keep the angbao money, right? And truth be told, I think my mom was thinking that you want to let him be and let go. And so if my son is were to grow older, I'm not sure if I would do the same, let him manage, because I haven't reached that kind of confidence level. So if it's okay, Jolene, can I check with Bob? Yeah, you with your 3 kids. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, it really depends on their maturity and all that stuff, right? How they handle money. So all my 3 kids are quite different. But one thing I want to add on the angbao, right? Usually for preschooler, no way. Primary school, no way, right? They got to keep it for themselves. I mean, from my experience, right? Actually, my wife is the one that basically keep all the money and manage the finances for the children. But one thing I noticed, once they get into the secondary school, and because the angbao money is only a number to them, so they got no attachment, nothing, because today it's just a number. So they did not realize about the power of money, right? So today it's just a number. And they usually gripe about to them just a number, no real value to them, right? So when it comes to secondary school, so we tend to give a portion of the angbao money to them so that they can realize that quick. Because the one thing we do not want to do is to desensitize about, because with all the digital currency and all stuff, they have got no real connection with money, right? To them, it's just a number. That's quite dangerous because, that's very dangerous, right? So once they have in possession on their currency and they're free to spend, right? A portion of it, then they realize the power of money and what money is an enabler, right? For them to satisfy themselves or even to help others. So once they understood the value of the money and how it can basically empower them or enable them, then they start to look at the digital currency with the numbers they have in the bank with a lot more relevance. Because up until primary school, it's just a number. To them, they don't care. So they say that, they don't really care. So they don't really have a attachment on the value of the currency. So in secondary school, so we tend to give a portion, my wife give a portion, let them spend whatever they want to spend on. Then only they realize the power of the money.
Okay.
So before that, it's just a number.
Before that, just and I guess you're all very mindful not to release the full amount
No.
immediately, right?
Even in secondary school, it's just a portion. Even now, in the 20s, it's still a portion. Yeah.
Have you ever asked them, even if you were to release, what would they do with the full sum? Or to them, it's at their disposal to spend all? Does the notion of setting aside for savings comes into play?
They will. Yeah,
okay. That's good.
So right now, like I said, my eldest son, he's in the 20s, like I said. So like I said, different phases, right? In primary school, they learn about saving. In secondary school, they learn about cash flow, budgeting. In their A-level university, they learn about investment. So now they start. So he start to look at investment. So the concept of assets, liability, returns. So different phases. So my eldest boy right now is into that phase about investment, compounded interest, liability, assets, a bit more complex concept. Yeah.
But that's age appropriate financial concept that they can pick
correct.
up.
So different phases,
right?
Yeah, different phases.
Yes, different phases. But without the good foundation to ground them, it will be very difficult for them to act on compound interest. It will be very
Yes.
difficult for them to pick up investing if they have always been on the other end of the equation of just spending, isn't it?
Correct.
Mm.
So they have to understand that. It's a very important concept about financial prudence and investment. Yeah.
Right, we can also use the angbao money to teach us. My thought on this is, my elder girl in primary 3, she has asked me, can I use my angbao money to buy certain things? So I foresee this will come, right? Every year she will ask for it. My discussion with my husband is, yes, we can probably apportion a bit for her, but we need to let her also know that whatever you want to buy, let's discuss. Right? Let's discuss whether is it value for money, is it worth buying? Because we do not want to send across a message. Hey, it's your money, you can spend it any old how on anything you want as well. So some level of discussion when we can still rein in control while she's still at a younger age, right? Okay, let's move on. Now, online scams getting more and more common. Indeed, I restrict my child's time spent on the internet to prevent him from getting into trouble. Any advice?
No, like I said just now, we do have one credit card for all the online purchase. So we limit well, if there's a scam, we limit the exposure, so to say. At the same time, you can monitor their spend.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
To add on, I think the schools today are also doing a very good job at educating on cyber hygiene. So what I do know is schools are also educating on the importance of having an intricate password, all right, and some education against scams of being money mules, etc. So restricting time on internet is definitely important because on the other hand, we do not want them to have excessive screen time. But if we are looking at it in line with preventing online scams, then I would say education must go hand in hand. Right? Education must go hand in hand because if we just deny them of the time, eventually, right, they will have to learn what is it that they need to look out for. So education must go hand in hand. As and when we see cases on the news, we can let them know. Right? In children, sometimes when they go to cafes, they are always looking for Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi. So I do tell, because I work closely with teenagers as well, I tell them, you need to be very careful when you're on public Wi-Fi, not to do your banking transactions. And let them know of the dangers that could be lurking. So I would say education must go hand in hand, not just cutting down on the screen time. Okay? Right. Next question. How can I introduce the concept of investing to grow your savings to my 18-year-old going to NS? Bobby, just out of curiosity, how did your son, or sorry, your child started to look into investing? Was it through your influence, or actually he heard about it, he read about it, and he started trying out to invest?
I'm not too sure exactly when, right? But because like I said, I'm a business owner, so from time to time at their growing age, I did talk to them about money matters, stuff like concepts, right? I'm not too sure whether it's during those times that they got it. But then when they are in the university, so they start to learn about, they're in the accountancy and all stuff. So they start to learn about the those concepts, and plus what they had hear from me, through the years about. So it ties in. So then they start to, because one thing that I stress upon is the power of compounding interest and the differentiation between assets and liability. So once they got that right, and I think they should be on the right path.
Just to sell some goyo, the IFL and MoneySense, we have some compound interest calculator. So for viewers, you can actually try it out, right?
Yeah.
It's very interesting. You can see how their money compound based on the expected interest rate.
Yeah, just I think 1 or 2 months ago, there was an article in Straits Times, right, about a lady, and how she grew her CPF account to $1 million. So she basically, maximize all the instruments that's available in CPF, like special accounts, retirement account, that she was able to grow her so-called retirement nest to $1 million. And just like I said, our special account is at 4%. it will compound it over less. When you do the math, right, you do the projection 10 years, that's enormous.
Indeed, right? We
That's
let them
enormous,
know
yeah.
the effect of compound interest is even more powerful when you start younger. So when we introduce the
correct.
concept of investing, the effect of compound interest should be something that is brought up very upfront.
Very upfront. And the other one is assets and liability. What you identifying what is assets, what's liability.
Would you say guidance is also very important nowadays? Because with investment, it's a risk-return trade-off, isn't it? So if not taught right, they may have the misimpression that high risk definitely will bring them high return. Right? So I would say while we introduce the concept, we should also be very mindful to educate them on the risk of investments, how various investment tools would actually carry its own risk. So we actually have to go about it in a mindful manner. Right?
Certainly.
And like what Ferry said, tap on resources that are available to you. Right? We have the budget calculators, we have the savings calculator, all for your usage. Okay, thank you. Okay, next, subcard for teenager. So they learn how to manage credit. Is it a good idea? Okay, I know you mentioned you have a family credit card for online, but that's not necessarily the same thing as a subcard for teenager, right? Because just by the question, we know what are certain pitfalls that can arise if we were to grant a supplementary credit card to our child, right? The issue of overspending, getting a shock at the end of the month, and you can imagine the argument that could pursue thereafter when you confront your child. So these are some of the issues that could arise if we were to give a subcard to our teenager when they may not be mature enough to handle it. Or their impression of credit card is a magic card. I can use it to buy anything I want. So my take on this is I would actually hold back until I deem my child to be mature. And even when I deem my child to be mature, I will actually establish the rules of engagement upfront. Under what circumstances you can use it, what are the consequences if you misuse it. Pretty much what I understand some parents do when they were to grant a mobile phone to their child. But what do you think, gentlemen?
I kind of don't like this idea of subcard. So if they blow the card, they have to, they should be the one that's paying for it. So it's going to be either myself or my wife who pay for it, right? So I would prefer that they own their own cards and be responsible for their own credit. Having said that, I am not sure if I will change my mind in future, because I remember when I first got my card, I actually overcharged because I feel so shocked. Like just sign, you know. So I may impose a limit to how much he can charge, or maybe I may even introduce when my dear son enters university, if provided he's the study material.
Yeah, we've been through it, right? Back then, we don't have so many opportunities to learn about financial literacy, so we make some mistakes, but we learn through them.
How about there are some other interesting questions we want to touch on.
Indeed. Shall we move along? Okay. There are some questions that we have already covered in principles. So let's see. Okay. Should I buy insurance for my children now? Something that we have not really discussed about insurance for our children. Certain level of interest, I suppose we all as parents, we would be able to purchase if financially we are in a position to do so. Health for one, I have purchased it to cover them. Savings, if we are looking at savings insurance, then it also depends on the financial ability. Plus, if you are saving for their university, I do know some parents who may prefer other form of financial instruments to reach their savings target. Right. So while we have many more questions, I'm afraid time is of the essence. So we have time for one last question, and let's look at the last question. I have a child with special needs. I am worried about her managing money independently as an adult. What help can I get for her when I am no longer around? Right. So it is something that we need to plan for if we do have a child of special need. In our IFL talks, we also cater for this scenario. And
maybe I can take this question
Paris,
if it's okay.
Question to you?
Yeah, thanks, Jolene. Okay, so this the viewer who put in this question that has a special needs. So there are some options that you may want to consider. First, for example, you may want to consider setting up a special needs trust. So for special needs trust, you can actually consider contacting SNTC. SNTC stands for Special Needs Trust Company. So it's a non-profit trust company in Singapore that is jointly supported by MSF and NCSS. So their fees are highly subsidized. So in terms of trust services, they are very affordable. So you may consider setting up a special needs trust. The other option that you can think of, right, is to utilize the special needs savings scheme for the long-term care of your special needs children. So for example, the CPF, right, has this SNSS. What happens is you can actually use this to set aside your CPF savings for the long-term care of your children with special needs. Okay, I hope that's helpful. Jolene, if it's okay, I have something that I thought that I want to share since
Absolutely.
okay. So I think that as parents, those of you who are viewing, and I know that this will be on recording, right? Sometimes, many a times, we as parents, we wanted the best for our children, right? So sometimes we also beat ourselves up and we want them to learn as many principles as possible, whether is it financial, whether is it your personal enrichment, your studies, right? So I thought I just want to encourage parents not to beat yourself up, to take small steps, because I do not know about Bobby and Jolene. I often beat myself up. so sometimes I say, how come our children is not as fast and all this thing. So I thought that I want to share this in case there are some parents here who feel like you're struggling, And just one last thought. I think we talk a lot about saving. We talk about financial literacy. There's one thing that I just want to add to inculcate our children for MoneySense for your child is sharing, because caring is sharing, sharing is caring. So when it comes to sharing, it's not just about money. It cannot be sharing of time, sharing of toys. And also just something that's very close to my heart would be sharing of Thanksgiving, is having an attitude of gratitude. So I thought I just want to share some of this insight. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Paris. I'm sure
Right.
our parents will be very happy to hear that too. Indeed, it's true. I think as parents, we try our best. We may make mistakes, but we know that we are trying our best, and we all need together to help each other. So we hope that the sharing session has benefited all of you. If you would like to learn more about MoneySense for your child, not to worry, we are actually having a talk next month. It's not MoneySense for your child. So we'll be reiterating the importance of financial education, but at the same time, we will be walking through with parents on how to utilize the activity kits to teach some financial habits to your child. So the date, you may want to save the date, is on the 29th of September. And if you are very curious about this activity kit that is designed in-house by IFL, you may also download it by scanning this QR code. Feel free to download and explore it. It is segmented into 3 different age groups. So you can actually explore it before our talk on the 29th of September, right? Now, if you have other questions you would like to pose in relation to this topic or even other financial topics, we welcome you to email us at ifl@sp.sg, or you can also post your questions at finland.sg, which is a community where like-minded financial learners may want to meet together to share their thoughts and views or even questions on various financial topics. Do also like, follow, or visit us at the various social media portals to keep connected. And if you enjoyed tonight's session on Ask Me Anything, we welcome you to join us for the next session. Save the date on the 22nd of September. IFL will be having AMA for financial fitness and basics of money management. We have come to the end of our session, and we will greatly appreciate if you can give us some feedback by scanning the QR code here. So once again, thank you, Bobby. Thank you, Paris, for the very engaging session of answering all the questions. And of course, thank you to our audience for your time. We hope you have benefited and have a lovely evening. Thank you.